Here to react to it all.
Wikileaks is unbelievable.
Then new leaked emails show a top Clinton ally calling Hillary's email server setup bleeping insane.
What we've learned about her and her people.
Jay Sekulow and Lisa Booth, they'll both weigh in.
I will never, ever take the African-American community for granted.
Plus, Donald Trump reaches out to African-American and Hispanic voters.
Never, ever.
Dr. Benjamin Carson is here with reaction. Hannity starts right here, right now.
And welcome to Hannity. And tonight, there are just 12 days left to stop the Obama-Clinton machine, and Wikileaks has dropped a major bombshell that could dramatically change this race. A newly released email details how Bill Clinton used his family foundation to line his own pockets with tens and tens of millions of dollars. And with all the details tonight is Fox's own Ed Henry. Pretty big blockbuster tonight, Ed.
It really is, Sean, and it follows the fact that Fox News first broke the story that Hillary Clinton herself had solicited a $12 million donation for the Clinton Foundation from the King of Morocco, and Huma Abedin suggested in an email that it was pay to play by bluntly declaring the money was given on the condition that Clinton had to go to Morocco to host a foundation event and give a speech. She later backed out, but Bill and Chelsea Clinton went in her place. The New York Times finally today following up on that story a week later. But as you say, more damaging emails from former Clinton intimate Doug Bann. He lays out how Bill Clinton lined his own pockets by steering donors for the Clinton Foundation to hire him for speeches and consulting. Look at this 2011 memo revealing the plan, quote, yielded more than $30 million for him personally, with $66 million to be paid out in years ahead. Another incredible revelation we learned today, even the top two officials in Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign were kept in the dark on the full extent of her email scandal by either the candidate herself or others in the inner circle. When the story first broke in the New York Times, campaign chair John Podesta wrote to Robbie Mook, quote, "Did you have any idea of the depth of this story?" Mook, the campaign's manager, responded, "Nope. We brought up the existence of emails and research this summer, but we're told that everything was taken care of." That came as the New York Times posted its very first story, March 2nd, 2015. All about Clinton's use of a personal email account as Secretary of State, a dramatic sign that the potential next commander-in-chief shares critical information with only a couple of trusted advisors like Abedin. All of this secretiveness, it was too much for liberal activist Neera Tanden. She wrote to John Podesta about the email scandal in the summer of 2015, quote, "It's like the whole thing is bleeping insane." And that honest admission comes at the same time, remember, Clinton herself and her aides in the summer of 2015 kept telling us this is not a big deal. There's nothing to see here. Move on. Even Neera Tanden, one of her top advisors, was saying it was insane, Sean.
Yeah, and by the way, we got to remember your question. You said, did you have your server wiped clean? And she goes, Ed, you mean like with a cloth?
Yeah.
Well, we now know it was bleach bit and acid wash.
Thousands of emails.
But I wanted to go, this whole thing is bleeping insane. The one individual you quoted as saying, also,
yeah,
I was told everything was taken care of. Being taken care of kind of fits into the bleach bit narrative that they wiped it out, that they eliminated it and got rid of the problem. Isn't that almost an admission, potentially, of guilt? Because, correct me if I'm wrong, weren't those emails all subpoenaed by that point?
Well, they were subpoenaed right after that point, we should say. So Robbie Mook, the campaign manager, having this conversation as the New York Times broke the story March 2nd. Trey Gowdy issued the subpoena, I believe, 2 days later, March 4th, 2015. So, yes, it's happening all in the same time period, but maybe he was referring to the idea that he went to Hillary Clinton, what's going on with the emails, and she said, oh, everything's fine, or maybe Huma Abedin said that. We simply don't know. Did they suggest they deleted them? We don't know. Did they suggest that maybe, look, there's nothing to see here, it's not a big deal, Robbie, just don't worry about it, and then he moved on to other issues. It shows you, though, that Hillary Clinton wasn't just dodging the press. She was maybe dodging her own campaign manager. When someone does that, it suggests they have something to hide.
You know, there's also some internal infighting here. Longtime Clinton aide, the head of the Clinton Foundation, this guy Doug Bann, he's responding to Chelsea Clinton's suggestion that they were making money off their proximity to Bill Clinton. He writes a pretty fierce email back. Now, we're talking about $116 million that he's lined up on the books for the Clintons. That's a lot of money.
Sure, you're not going to believe these details. Chelsea Clinton, I think, was the good actor in all
this. I agree.
When you
actually agree with that.
Because, right, she was blowing the whistle and saying, look, there's problems with this foundation. What's significant, number one, is they keep saying at the foundation, it's conservative critics beating up on the foundation. Chelsea Clinton was saying there were problems there. That's significant, number one. Number two, she brought in an independent law firm to do an audit that suggested donors expect a quid pro quo. That's what the law firm found. Again, not conservative critics. And finally, the details of this, Chelsea Clinton went after him and said, look, I'm hearing speculation that Doug Bann is trading on my father's name, Bill Clinton's name, for Teneo, his consulting company. Doug Bann denies that, says he didn't make any money off of Bill Clinton on Teneo. We'll leave that aside for a second. The bottom line is Doug Bann fired back with the memo you mentioned about all the money, and he had another email we've gone through where Doug Bann said Bill Clinton is being paid by 3 different sponsors of the Clinton Foundation, so he's the one with conflicts of interest. And he said Bill Clinton has taken big personal gifts that are now in the Clinton home, either in Chappaqua or Washington, and the home, by the way, of Hillary Clinton, the potential next president. That's a big story.
And he's mad he didn't get a cut of that. He complained back. All right. Ed Henry, thanks so much for being with us. All right. RNC Chairman Reince Priebus is reacting to these new revelations about how Bill Clinton is making all of this money by saying, quote, this memo is the smoking gun for how the Clintons use their foundation to create a massive for-profit, paid-speaking, consulting business, all to enrich themselves. Here with reaction, the author of the bestseller, Treason, former Speaker of the House, Fox News contributor Newt Gingrich is with us. We're talking about $116 million. I want to put these revelations next to an AP story that said, remember, 55% of individuals that got to see Hillary when she was Secretary of State were either donors or people committing money to the foundation. Now, add that to the Hannity story. They raised this money, separate list for foundation donors and friends of Bill so they can cash in on the contracts after 150,000 people died and they raised money, and they would be first in line to make more money so they can funnel it back to the Clinton Foundation. How does this not get picked up? How is this not Watergate in the minds of the rest of the media?
Well, it's beginning to get picked up. You know, I think somebody pointed out that on Morning Joe, they spent 13 minutes attacking the Clintons this morning. Now, that's unheard of. That's a breakdown in elite media discipline that's just hard to imagine. And it'll be interesting to see by tomorrow, where's the Washington Post? Where's the New York Times? This stuff's getting so big and smelling so bad that I think they're going to have a very hard time hiding from it. You know, if the Federal Bureau of Investigation was still a law enforcement agency, we would have a grand jury impaneled to be taking testimony right now and not negotiating, but issuing subpoenas.
Well, wait a minute. I beg to differ. Oh, no, they're a law enforcement organization, because if you did it, they would have impaneled that grand jury by now. If I did it, that grand jury would be impaneled right now. Therein lies a big problem we have with our Justice Department.
Right, because that's not law enforcement. That's selective prosecution. Law enforcement says that all of us are under the law. All of us have to obey the law. All of us have to face the same consequences. We know for a fact from all this stuff that you have the head of the Clinton campaign, John Podesta, going off to dinner with the Justice Department. You have weird negotiations with various Clinton officials, things nobody gets from the FBI. You have the president, the former president, and the attorney general meeting on a plane in secret the same week they're going to interrogate Hillary. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that in a place like Venezuela you would understand, because they don't have the rule of law. But what we're seeing right now, and WikiLeaks in this sense, is ripping the scar off of the largest amount of corruption in American history. This beats any prior corruption scandal I know of, including the 1868, the period when Grant was president, including the Harding administration, I mean, including some of the things that happened under Truman. None of those things are like this. This is the largest scandal affecting a senior American politician, I think, in the history of the United States. And it's, as you yourself just pointed out, you have Hillary Clinton clearly trading on the office of Secretary of State in a way which has to be, I'm not a lawyer, but my guess is you've got probably 60 or 70 counts against her just in terms of scheduling people to come into her office. And yet she could be elected president. Who they knew.
And yet, according to polls, she's in this race. In 12 days, she could possibly win this election. What does that say?
That's right. Well, it says that our country is a culture in crisis. Our country has got to decide, does the rule of law apply to everyone, or are we now going to be a country where some people are above the law, and no matter how corrupt they are, you know, putting Bill Clinton back in the White House, given everything we're learning, I think would be almost a sign of sickness. And I personally, this is why I've always told you I thought that she would lose and Donald Trump would win. In the end, I don't think the majority of American people are going to put somebody who is a liar and a crook in the White House. I have enough faith in the American people that when they get down to voting, and I've had several people say this to me this week, that when they got right down to it, they simply couldn't vote for her.
All right, we'll take a break. We'll come back. We have more with Newt Gingrich right after this break, and also coming up tonight.
It's record-setting bad treatment, what I'm getting. It's the greatest pile-on in American history. I go to these rallies, and they're starting to hate the media.
Greatest pile-on in American history. Donald Trump slamming the out-of-control left-wing mainstream media. Newt Gingrich will weigh in on that, plus a quick programming note. Be sure to tune in tomorrow night, 10 Eastern. Donald Trump will be our guest. Again, that's tomorrow night at 10. We have more Hannity, though, coming up straight ahead.
Live from America's News headquarters, I'm Patricia Stark. Tense moments earlier tonight for Vice Presidential nominee Mike Pence and other passengers aboard his private campaign plane. It happened at New York's LaGuardia Airport. The governor's jet was landing in heavy rain when it slid off the runway. No one was hurt, although the 35 passengers describe a very rough landing as the pilot slammed on the brakes and overshot the runway. The plane tore up 2 tracks of concrete before coming to a rest on a patch of grass. Pence says he saw mud on the cockpit window. Emergency crews arrived to escort the passengers off the plane. Governor Pence was on his way to join running mate Donald Trump at a fundraiser in Trump Tower. The presidential nominee says he's grateful no one was hurt. Pence adds he's looking forward to being back on the campaign trail tomorrow. I'm Patricia Stark, and now back to Hannity. For all your headlines, log on to foxnews.com.
I have to say, the media now, they're going wild. The media is going wild because they're saying, you know, this guy's winning.
That was Donald Trump slamming the liberal mainstream media at a campaign stop. That was in Springfield, Ohio, but that's not all. During a sit-down interview with ABC's George Stephanopoulos, Donald Trump explained just how unfairly he is being treated by the liberal press. Take a look. Gingrich, the greatest pile-on in history. In many ways, you know, we've discussed, for example, last night, we've learned from Wikileaks that a lot of these reporters, mainstream media, they're being wined and dined by the Clinton campaign. And this is from ABC, the Associated Press, Bloomberg, CBS, CNBC, CNN, MSNBC, the New York Times, Political, Reuters, The Hill, the Wall Street Journal. I never got the invitation. Did you get one? Because I've never been invited to any of these things.
Well, I don't think you're going to be either.
I don't want to be. I really don't want it.
I don't think the Clintons have you on their list of possible allies.
But let me tell you one other thing. I've never been to Mar-a-Lago. I've never stayed in a Trump hotel. I've never been to a Trump golf course either, and never been invited there either. Everyone hates me, I guess. You know, what's up with that? I'm beginning to get a complex.
Well, I don't know. I think, you know, I'm confident that if you ask Donald, we'll get you on a golf course.
I'll pay my way. I don't need anything.
I don't know. That's right. You're doing fine. Look, a couple quick things. Just so the audience gets a full flavor of this. And let me say, by the way, because I know you're going to cover later on in a very important part of this show, the New Deal for African Americans and for the black community is a really big idea. Donald Trump has done more to communicate concern and to communicate solutions to the African American community than any Republican presidential candidate in my lifetime. And the speech yesterday was a big deal. And I know it's going to be on later on the show tonight. I just want to tell you, I think people should note how many things he's saying and doing that are substantive. His contract with the American voter, which, again, as a guy who wrote the contract with America, I'm very sympathetic to contracts. It's a great contract. Everybody should go look at it and should see that at the website for the contract that, in fact, this is something that's real. It is specific. It is totally different from where Hillary Clinton would take us. And I think these are big breakthroughs. But you're not going to see much of it in the elite media because it's all positive.
I actually have, and this is actually signed by Trump. This is his contract with America. Now, he talks about 6 measures to clean up corruption, drain the swamp, as he calls it, special interests, 7 actions to protect American workers, 5 actions to restore security and constitutional rule of law, middle-class tax simplification, ending End the Offshoring Act, American Energy and Infrastructure Act, School Choice and Education Opportunity Act, Repeal and Replace Obamacare Act, Affordable Child Care and Elder Care Act, End the Illegal Immigration Act, Restoring Community Safety Act, Restoring National Security Act, and Cleaning Up Corruption in Washington. There are 2 pages. I put it up on my website, Hannity.com, and people say he's not substantive. They don't want to cover the substance of Donald Trump. They don't want to cover this. And maybe he needs to do what you did when you were running, pull it out of his pocket in every interview and say, this is what I'm going to do. I don't want to talk about A, B, and C, what you want to talk about.
Okay. I think he should probably hold it up at every single rally and tell people that they can go to his website and they can sign up. And they can be part of this contract between him and the American people. And I think because we did it, and he knows how we did it. He knows we kept our word. He knows we voted on every single thing in the 1994 contract with America. And I think he's trying to make a case here that he is really committed to very, very dramatic change. I think it's pathetic that the New York Times, the Washington Post, etc., NBC, CBS, ABC, none of these guys can serve America by letting them see that there is a real alternative. I mean, it's almost unpatriotic to have the level of deliberate disinformation and deliberate censorship that we're getting out of the elite media. And I think it's something the average American gets. And one of the reasons you're getting these huge voter turnouts, I think, is to send a signal to the news media, you're not going to dictate to us that we have to vote for some corrupt left-winger. We're going to show you. And I think you're going to find some very surprising results this fall.
All right. Can only hope so. 12 days to go, Mr. Speaker. Appreciate you being with us. And coming up, newly released WikiLeaks emails show that Clinton aides, they were shocked, they were appalled by Hillary's private email server. We'll check in with attorney Jay Sekulow, Lisa Booth. They'll weigh in. And also later tonight.
I will also pursue financial reforms to make it easier for young African Americans to get credit to pursue their dreams in business and create jobs in their communities.
More substance ignored by the mainstream media. Donald Trump unveils his new deal for Black America. We'll remind you what Dr. Ben Carson, A.J. Delgado have to think about it. That's also later tonight.
Come.
The Clinton crew gave more than $675,000 to the wife of the deputy director of the FBI and the man who was overseeing the investigation into Hillary's illegal server, a server we now know Obama knew about. The more emails WikiLeaks releases, the more lines between the Clinton Foundation, the Secretary of State's office, and the Clintons' personal financiers, they all get blurred.
All right, that was Donald Trump earlier today talking about the damning new WikiLeaks revelations. Now, as Ed just told us a few moments ago, one email released today was from the president for the Center for American Progress. The co-chair, of course, is Clinton's transition team, Neera Tanden. Now, she wrote back in July of 2015, quote, "Do we actually know who told Hillary she could use a private email? And has that person been drawn and quartered? Like, this whole thing is insane." I didn't say the other word. Anyway, joining us now with reaction is the author of Unholy Alliance from the American Center for Law and Justice, Jay Sekulow, and Washington Examiner contributor, by the way, now a part of the Fox News family. Lisa Booth is with us. Guys, good to see you both.
Hi, Sean.
Hey, Sean. Jay, I have not sensed from you real enthusiasm for Trump. Why?
Well, I just think that the campaign has missed the issues. I mean, that's been, and Sean, you and I have been friends a long time. I'm an issues person, and I'm worried about the issues being addressed, and I don't think it's been articulated particularly strongly by Donald Trump. Now, that's not to say that the media hasn't been.
In fairness to him, though, and this is really, I think, an issue that involves the narrative of the news media. He came out with Trump's contract with America.
Absolutely.
Detailed, substantive. I'll give you some other details. We know he is going to drop the corporate tax rate down to 15%. We know he's going to extremely vet refugees. We know he's going to build a wall. We know he's going to eliminate, replace Obamacare health savings accounts. We know he'll say radical Islam. And you saw the list of Supreme Court justices. That's an issue near and dear to your heart.
Yep.
So, help me out here.
So what you just did, Sean, is very effective. The problem is, and it is part of it's the media, but part of it is being, when you've got to give a message, you've got to make your 3 points and stick to it no matter what is coming at you. And what I have seen in the campaign, and by the way, I think it's way too close to call. I think that Donald Trump underpolls. But I think the fact is you've got 3 or 4 major points you want to make. You just rattled them off very succinctly. But he tends to get distracted. And that's the thing that in the presidential campaign,
maybe that's
like
true.
the Supreme Court argument, never let them get you distracted.
I've been on radio 30 years. It's my 21st year on Fox. This is what I do. He's a business guy.
Yes.
I'm not sure that the public, the voting public, Lisa, jump in here, is going to judge him on the standard of whether he can rattle off, exactly his agenda in 30 seconds like a professional talk show host could.
Well, look, I think that part of Donald Trump's appeal to voters is the fact that he doesn't speak like Hillary Clinton, the fact that he speaks a little bit more plain-spoken, like an average person would. And they find Hillary Clinton rehearsed, and that's part of the inauthenticity and the reason that Americans don't trust her. But I do think that it would be to Donald Trump's benefit, especially right now with all of this information that has come out regarding WikiLeaks, whether it's the fact that Bill Clinton personally made $66 million off of sources that were tied to the Clinton Foundation, essentially leveraging those relationships to make the Clintons personally rich. And that gives a lot of new light when you remember that the AP had reported not too long ago that more than half of Hillary Clinton's non-government meetings were Clinton Foundation donors. So there's so much information here to unpack, and I certainly believe that it's to Donald Trump's benefit to start unpacking it for Americans.
And, Jay, they're admitting they know that this entire issue is corrupt. And all these different emails that went back and forth, they knew it was false. They knew the Clinton Foundation issue. They understood it.
Yeah. So here's the real issue. His staff, now because of the WikiLeaks, the staff reporting of what was going on internally inside the campaign is now made public for the rest of the world to see. And if you look at where these lines go, this is not, by the way, a complicated connect the dots. The fact is what was going on. I mean, you mentioned the FBI situation. I mean, the FBI should be embarrassed. Now the number 2 guy at the FBI gets promoted after all this mess. His wife was running to be a state Senate seat, and the governor of Virginia pours in between the DNC and PACs $700,000, $800,000 for a state Senate seat, which she loses, and then he gets promoted. I mean, none of this, Sean. Look, in another universe at another time, this would be a very different situation. But I go back to stay a messenger. Coming up to the most important 10 days of the presidential election. This is it. The final 10 days is just 2 days away. For both Clinton and for Trump, they have got to hit their messages. If you're a Trump supporter, you want him hitting exactly what you hit consistently, not get distracted by other things. If you're a Clinton supporter, same thing. Focus on where you're going to go. If they don't focus, though, that's the problem. And Donald Trump has not been focused.
Last word, Lisa.
Well, I agree. I do think that he really does need to stay focused because there are indications that this race is tightening. But what we've seen throughout this election is the fact that it's been very fluid. There's been a lot of ebbs and flows. That being said, there's 12 days out until the election. There's no time left for screw-ups. He cannot say something stupid. He cannot distract the media's attention away from things like the Doug Ban memo, this WikiLeaks information that surfaced, the fact that President Obama might have known about her private email server all along. These are things that he needs to allow the media to stay focused on, and he cannot offer any distractions by getting off message or saying anything stupid. So it's really, this is vital territory right now, Sean.
All right. Thank you both. Appreciate it. And up next tonight, right here on Hannity.
Maybe the greatest of that potential is in the African American communities. There's so much potential.
Donald Trump breaking new ground, laying out his, quote, new deal with black Americans. Dr. Ben Carson, A.J. Delgado, they're here next. And later, more of the millennial town hall that we taped in Vegas with Donald Trump Jr., Eric Trump, Lara Trump. And you'll also meet 2 conservative students who say they've been harassed for their conservative views. That's straight ahead. And welcome back to Hannity. So Donald Trump, while campaigning yesterday in North Carolina, he reached out to African-American voters and unveiled what he called a, quote, new deal for black America. Let's take a look.
Here is the promise I make to you. Whether you vote for me or not, I will be your greatest champion. I will also pursue financial reforms to make it easier for young African Americans to get credit to pursue their dreams in business and create jobs in their communities. We will also encourage small business creation by allowing social welfare workers to convert poverty assistance into repayable but forgivable microloans. Everywhere I go in this country, all I see is untapped potential waiting to be set free. And maybe the greatest of that potential is in the African American communities. There's so much potential.
Here now with reaction, former 2016 GOP presidential candidate Dr. Ben Carson and Trump campaign advisor, senior advisor A.J. Delgado. All right, Dr. Carson, three big promises: safe communities, great education, high-paying jobs. If you look at the numbers and break down issues economically in the black community, they have been disproportionately impacted by violence, by a bad educational system, and the lack of economic opportunity. So this, to me, seems to be, must be a long-standing promise that Republicans should be making every year, not just campaign years.
Yeah, well, better late than never. The Republican Party has been tardy when it comes to focusing on the downtrodden communities, you know, both on the inner city, some of our rural communities. And whenever I talk about that with Donald Trump, he gets very animated from the very beginning. And he understands that these communities are vital to the health of our nation. And you can't have a successful nation without this. But some of the keys are a good education, because that changes the trajectory of one's life.
Well, that's what your mother did for you,
opportunities.
Dr. Carson. Your mother
Absolutely.
took you off the streets and your friends, and she said, you got to read, you got to study, and took away your games and your TV, and, you know, look at what you became, one of the best surgeons in history.
Well, it really differs from what the Democrats have offered. You know, they say, I'm going to give you this housing subsidy, I'm going to give you free health care, I'm going to give you food stamps. And, you know, that's not particularly helpful. What you want to do is provide the pathway, the good mechanism, so that people can climb out of a state of dependency. And you know, I've heard some people criticize Donald Trump and say, oh, well, he thinks that all blacks live in the ghetto and are poor. No, he doesn't believe that at all. Of course he knows better than that. But he is concentrating on the area of weakness, and the area that we need to strengthen, because we only have 330 million people.
If you look at the 8 Obama years, and I talk about the horrible economic statistics, doubling of the debt, 1 in 5 American families, nobody's working, 13 million more Americans on food stamps, 8 million more in poverty. Blacks, Hispanics have been disproportionately negatively impacted by liberal policies, but every 4 years. Inner city America, in come the Democratic Party, we need your votes, and by the way, those wascally Republicans, they're racist, don't vote for them.
Right.
Same strategy, no impact in their lives.
Right, and what we're most hurt by is illegal immigration. Working class African Americans and working class Latinos, we're the ones that are disproportionately negatively impacted by it. I wrote about this 2.5 years ago in National Review. It's African Americans that are the victims of amnesty when they see higher competition for jobs, lower wages because of illegal immigration. So I don't think there's been enough attention paid to the fact that Donald Trump's platform really is, for that reason alone even, a pro-African American platform.
This is the key question then. Why every 4 years? Disproportionately. Now, there was a Rasmussen poll out October 25th. Trump has 16% support from black Americans. Okay, almost triple the amount that Mitt Romney had. But why still such a low number? In other words, Democrats seem to have a lock, a monopoly on these demographic groups. Why?
Because of the media noise. They refuse to acknowledge something as simple as, listen, your communities, you need jobs, you need less competition, you need higher wages. Amnesty is what's hurting you. Business regulation that Donald Trump wants to do away with is what's hurting you. Bad trade deals are what's hurting you. So when you vote Trump, you're voting for yourself. A vote for Trump is a vote for helping the African American community. That's a fact. That's indisputable.
What do you think, Dr. Carson? You look at all these polls. We see all these balls up in the air right now, WikiLeaks, more Project Veritas. My question to you is, do you believe these polls are wrong? Do you think there's going to be a Brexit effect? Do you think there are people that won't admit they're going to vote for Donald Trump? You're out with them on a pretty regular basis.
Yes, I do believe that the polls are skewed. You know, one of the polls last week, I think it was ABC, had Hillary 12 points ahead, but they only polled 29% Republicans. If they polled 29% Democrats, they'd have a very different number. And they tend not to talk about, you know, IBD and Rasmussen and the ones that look good for Trump. And that seems to be universal amongst the mainstream media. And I think a lot of people, and particularly in the black community, if you ask them who they're voting for, they're not going to say Trump because, you know, they don't trust you. They don't know who you are. And there's such negative ramifications for them. And in the white community, they frequently don't want to say it because if you vote for Trump, you're a racist. That's the narrative that's been put forth. Of course, it's full of crap, but that's what's put forth out there.
I love when you say full of crap. Now you sound like me. Your talk show host is in your future. What do you think, AJ?
Absolutely agree. Listen, there's an intimidation factor that people don't want to admit they're voting for Trump because the media has been so heinous in the way they portrayed Trump supporters. So we're seeing it come out in Florida. Supposedly Clinton was up, and now we've seen in early voting it's Donald Trump that's up. That's proof positive right there that the polls are wrong.
He's got to run the table, though. He's got to get Florida, Ohio, North Carolina. He's got to pull in, make sure he gets Utah, which is amazing, Arizona, Nevada, and then he's got to pick up, you know, a New Hampshire, including Indiana, and then he also has to get Iowa. It's a tough, he's got a...
It's going to be tough, but it's going to get done. The people know he's our champion, and they're going to cast that ballot on November 8th.
All right, thank you both. And up next tonight, right here on Hannity.
Clinton was paying people $1,500 plus an iPhone to go out and be violent at our rallies.
$1,500 and an iPhone. Donald Trump talking about how terribly his supporters are treated on the campaign trail. Up next, we're going to play you more of that town hall that we had with conservative millennial voters. You're going to hear from two amazing college students who say they've been harassed for their conservative views, as Hannity continues.
Where through Wikileaks, we found out that Clinton was paying people $1,500 plus an iPhone to go out and be violent at our rallies. It's a disgrace. But I'll tell you what, they found our people are very tough. They found that out.
Donald Trump last night talking about the coordinated mistreatment of Trump supporters all across the country. Now, for the past few nights, we've been showing you parts of the conservative millennial town hall that we did last week in Vegas with Donald Trump Jr., Eric Trump, his wife Lara, and tonight you're going to meet two college students. They say they have faced discrimination on campus. Why? Their conservative beliefs. Watch this. Joining us now is Dominique Blair. She is an African-American Trump supporter, born and raised in Compton in L.A., Los Angeles. And you're facing a backlash in your community. We'll get to that in a second. And also joining us, Haley Niefes. She is a student at UCLA?
Yes.
That's awesome. And a Trump supporter. And you said anti-Trump protesters crashed an event that you were holding, and they were stomping on the American flag?
Yes, and not only that, but after our event, they attempted to burn the American flag outside.
Wow.
It's amazing. You can't make this stuff up, Sean.
You really can't. You know, it's fun. As Don was talking about earlier, that's really sad. I mean, that especially where there should be a bastion of freedom of speech in a college campus and the free and open exchange of ideas, that's not happening. Tell us why you have decided to step out and say, all right, this is the person I want for president. Why?
I have decided to support Donald Trump first and foremost because of the implications of the Supreme Court with the appointment of 4 Supreme Court justices. And this could fundamentally transform the orientation of our country towards the Constitution and the laws. Right. So this election does not only extend for the next 4 to 8 years, but potentially the next 40 to 50. And that is something that we need to put in context and be cognizant of.
Yeah, that's a good point, right? I say it every day. Not 4 or 8 years, it's 30 or 40 years.
Dominique, how are you? By the way, I love that cross. That is really pretty. Thank you so much for being here. Tell us what happened. How are you being treated?
Oh, very poorly on my campus and on different campuses. It's very hard to be a conservative activist in Los Angeles, and going to different schools and even attending activist events with conservative speakers can be very harmful and dangerous. You're faced with very crazy leftist mobs that are not tolerant of your views whatsoever. And it turns into a lot of, I would say, very a lot of bad debates, I would say, sometimes violent, sometimes hitting and fights, and I've been all around it.
And just for saying you support Donald Trump and you want to have a peaceful, reasonable exchange of ideas,
right.
and you're treated that horribly, what is important to you? Why do you like Donald Trump? Why is he your choice?
Several reasons, but I would say I agree with him on foreign policy. Definitely, that's something strong that I believe.
You mean you don't support giving Iranian mullahs $150 billion?
Yeah. Yeah, I will say that I don't.
And you believe we should say the words radical Islam?
And I believe we should say radical Islam. I definitely do.
And vet refugees that grow up in countries that teach Sharia?
Exactly, you're reading my mind.
You're an extremist like me.
Apparently we're all radical.
All right. Dominique will be hosting the rest of the show.
Yeah.
No,
Good job.
I really feel bad when I hear stories like yours, both of yours, because you're entitled to your belief system. And it's like we're under assault. How dare you think differently than another person or think for yourself or independently? Have you also had a positive experience where you can change other people's minds?
Definitely so. Every single week, Bruin Republicans at UCLA and fellow Turning Point USA activists and I go out on Bruin Walk, the central pathway through campus, and engage with students face-to-face, discussing these issues about limited government, fiscal responsibility, and traditional values. And I have converted Bernie supporters to our side, and individuals from all points on the political spectrum to believe in our values.
There's something really rewarding about that, right?
I'm sorry?
It's something rewarding when you can make intelligent arguments and somebody say, you know what, I think you're right.
Yes.
Isn't that great?
Yes.
You know, one of the things that has shocked me in the course of, this is my 30th year on the radio. Some of you weren't born yet. It's my 21st year on the Fox News channel. And thank you. One of the things that has really surprised me is Social Security will be bankrupt in 18 years. Medicare's headed for bankruptcy. Obamacare has spiraled down, no promise that they made. There's no Social Security lockbox. We have more debt accumulated in 8 years than the previous, 200 and whatever, 43 presidents combined. And I'm shocked that so many people, maybe in your generation, or so I believe, they seem to have faith that the government is going to solve their problems. Where did you develop this sense that it's not the government's role to take care of your breakfast, lunch, dinner, health care, daycare, government car, government house, government cheese, government everything? Where did you get the independent mindset that we live with freedom, and with freedom comes responsibility and opportunity?
Okay, well, I would say it definitely came from my parents.
Yeah.
My mom has raised 7 children. I'm the last of 7. And also my older siblings, too. They taught me how to be self-reliant, to get a job and be stable, go to school, and take care of yourself. We also take care of mama still, but definitely take care of yourself and learn how to become an adult. And just my stepdad from Iran, he came here in Iran in the 70s and fled that country, and he wanted a better life for himself. And I saw him growing up, started 3 businesses.
Wow.
One selling computers, one driving super shuttle for LAX, and another one as a professor at a college.
I bet you're proud of him, right?
I am.
Yeah. Here's an amazing thing. I doubt either one of you thought you'd be at a millennial town hall with hundreds of people sitting next to Don Jr. and Eric, did you?
No.
Yeah.
Great country, right?
Years.
Yeah.
We're glad to do it. You're both amazing. This makes me believe there's some hope.
There's hope.
This is the hope that I get to see.
There's hope in just a few days. If everyone here going to be voting, I hope. Thank you both. You're very inspiring. And coming up, we need your help. A very important question of the day. Straight ahead. All right, time for a question of the day. Donald Trump, he says the media coverage of him is the greatest pile-on in American history. What do you think of those comments, especially in light of Wikileaks, the collusion with all the big media outlets, and the Hillary Clinton campaign? By the way, November 9th, we're going to start a campaign to expose this media like you've never seen before. Win, lose, or draw. Just a little sneak peek of coming attractions. Anyway, go to Facebook.com/Sean Hannity, at Sean Hannity on Twitter. Let us know what you think. Quick programming note. Tomorrow night, 10 Eastern, the Republican presidential nominee, Donald Trump, will join us with only 11 days to go. Tomorrow night at 10. Thanks for being